3 of the Extradition Act allows the Justice Minister to intervene and stop an extradition. Did you know about this provision when Meng was detained? And if so, why do you continue to say that Canada cannot intervene when the legislative power is there? And if you're not going to use that power, what other options do you have if China has already hinted they'd be open to a swap?
We're in a situation where, first and foremost, the priority of any Canadian government needs to be to keep Canadians safe, which is why we're working incredibly hard to bring home those two Michaels who have been arbitrarily detained. China itself has admitted that there is a direct link between the detention of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor and the arrest in an extradition process of Meng Wanzhou. We have an independent justice system that is going through its process. And yes, there is and has been from the very beginning a element of that that involves input from the Justice Minister at the appropriate time. However, the bigger question is whether or not we want China or other countries to get the message that all they have to do to get leverage over the Canadian government is randomly arrest a couple of Canadians. That not only puts Canadians in difficulty now, but puts them in difficulty and in danger in the coming years. We need to continue to be absolutely crystal clear that Canada has an independent judiciary, and those processes will unfold independently of any political pressure, including by foreign governments. We deplore what China did in arbitrarily detaining the two Michaels, in directly linking those arrests, which came a few days after the arrest on an extradition treaty of Meng Wanzhou, to each other. And we will continue to remain steadfast and strong and say very clearly in our actions and in our words that randomly arresting Canadians doesn't give you leverage over the government of Canada anywhere in the world. Nous déplorons
We are really deploring the fact that China is as related or as the arrest or as chose to arrest in arbitrarily and random fashion two Canadians following the arrest or in the process of extradition of Meng Wanzhou. We must explain and express and make it so that countries across the world understand that it's not a way of obtaining influence over the government of Canada by arresting in a random fashion Canadians in their territory. If we allow this, we would put in peril and make vulnerable millions of Canadians traveling across the world every year.
Good morning, Prime Minister Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News. There are two lives in the balance here. How do you explain to the families of the two Michaels that your government can but won't intervene in the extradition process, which could lead to the freedoms of these two Michaels, and by not acting, they could languish in Chinese detention for years to come?
I have met with a number of family members, and I feel deeply for not just the two Michaels who are in a very difficult situation, but their families who have endured a year and a half of difficulties with this arbitrary detention by Chinese authorities. But it is not just the two Michaels who are at question here. It is every Canadian who travels to China or anywhere else overseas. If the Chinese government concludes from this exchange and this interaction that it is an effective way to gain leverage over Canadians and over the Canadian government to randomly arrest Canadians, then no Canadian will be safe going forward. So I understand the difficulty and the heart-wrenching ordeal that these two Michaels are going through right now. But always, I need to focus on, and our government needs to focus on, what is going to keep Canadians safe into the future. and to demonstrate to China that they can just arrest Canadians and get what they want out of Canada, even for us going against the independence of our judicial system, would be absolutely unacceptable.
I understand up to what point it's just a terrible, awful situation for the Michaels, for their families. I had the opportunity to speak with the members of their family, and I understand how it's so tough for them. But at the same time, my responsibility goes beyond 2 Canadians. Tens of thousands of Canadians are traveling throughout China every year. The 3 million Canadians abroad at all time would become vulnerable to vulnerable arrests if countries across the world, governments across the world, decided that the way to get what you want out of Canada is to arrest a couple of Canadians and make their life terrible due to this. We must stay strong, stand up for the independence of our justice system, for the respect of our international treaties, and not being influenced by the arrest of those 2 individuals. Because if we do so, we put in danger just a lot of Canadians across the world in the future.
Visas for Chinese students studying in Canada if they have close ties to the Chinese Communist Party, or that Canada target Chinese officials through the Magnitsky Act. Would you consider that?
As we've said, we're looking at a range of options and of measures, and we're continuing to exert various actions in order to bring back those Michaels safely. We will continue to work extremely hard and look at all different ways to ensure that we bring these Canadians home. We have, over the past number of years, demonstrated significant success in standing up for Canadians in trouble overseas. We will continue to do everything we need to do to bring them home without further endangering Canadians in the future.
As I said, we will continue to explore every option to bring those 2 Canadians, but we won't put in danger Canadians that could travel in China or elsewhere in the future.
Prime Minister Janet Silver, Global News. Those 19 eminent Canadians who signed the letter say that the Canadian foreign policy is essentially frozen while the 2 Michaels are being held in China. Do you agree with that assessment?
On the contrary, we continue to engage substantially around the world and with China on many different issues. But it is certain that this issue of China trying to exert political pressure on Canada by having arbitrarily detained 2 Canadians in response to us fulfilling obligations under an international extradition treaty is causing a challenge in our relationship. We need to demonstrate that we have an independent judiciary, and we will continue to respect that independent judiciary regardless of the pressure put on us by foreign governments. And that's why, even as we do everything we can to bring those Michaels home, we will not give in to these political pressures and compromise the independence of our judiciary or allow others to conclude that there are political paths to get what they want out of Canada's independent judicial system.